If you could live forever, would you? Whilst death may offer peace and rest to those who pass, it can be a difficult reality for those left behind to accept. It represents a transition into the unknown, marking our final quest. But what if I told you you could live forever? You see, life acts as a canvas. It showcases the impact of your love and your actions, because immortality does not necessarily require physical presence. And despite being feared and mourned, death possesses a certain grace. In the quiet whispers of death, we discover solace, and it prompts us to appreciate each moment's embrace. I feel we should try not to dread the inevitable conclusion, but instead live each day with love and compassion. Because within death's shadow lies a new beginning, a spiritual journey that remains forever in our hearts. And I believe that way, you can truly live forever.
Hi all, and welcome back. Listen, I've taken you to a couple of our locations: Bermondsey, Deptford, Northern Cyprus, and now I've brought you here. This amazing location. If you guys haven't recognised it already, I want you to stay tuned. I want you to like, comment, subscribe, put on your notifications, and tell others. That's the most important thing, all right? Our story, the only way we knew, is real, absolutely real, right? So join me on this journey. Yeah, we've come away from the podcasts, and I thought I'd bring you back to, a location that's in the book. Obviously, you've probably gathered where we are by, as you can see behind me. But look, it's been a while since I've been back here. It's been since we've started doing the book together, me and Ree. I don't like coming here. I don't like it. It brings me, I think it gives me the true reality of what's happened with Dad. But being back here today with you guys, it's not easy for me. It's not easy that I'm emotional about Dad passing, but it's the realisation and the reality of the trueness of what's happened. Dad passing away 12 years ago. I mean, I'm walking down here now, and I'm going to a place that the final spot of my dad, the final spot. All his movement that he done in his life, coming over from Cyprus, like I said, Bermondsey, Deptford, Cyprus, and his final destination is here. Marvel's Lane Cemetery, Grove Park. It makes you realise, the reality of your existence. And me coming here, when I come here and I look at all these, and it brings things back to life, back to reality of the true meaning of living. It's like here looking now, and I see all these tombstones, graveyards. Everyone's got a story, a journey. How many people have got untold stories? Stories that they wish they told, they writ it down. And I come back here and it's scary, isn't it? Is there a better football player than Ronaldo, Messi? But he never took it to the forefront, and he's in here. Is there a better artist than Monet? He never took it to the forefront. Forgotten lives. That's what they are. But we can't forget them. That's the reality of it. It's like I walk here and I know he's only there. But that day comes back to me, you know, the 22nd of April, 12 years ago. I can remember this place at the top. When I looked down, I saw all these people all waiting for him, all waiting for him. And I can remember I was in the hearse. And I always remember in the back of my head, I was like, shit, this is his last journey. This is his last fucking journey. And I remember here was heaving with people. You got to remember, this isn't just about my dad's journey. I've got other family members' journey that's come here, you know? So as I walk here, I've just spotted it. I can see it straight away. And at that time, there wasn't that many people here buried. He was like at the forefront of it. Grieving, eh? I'll get into grieving. Sad, really, deep down, isn't it? Sad when you actually think about it. It's like I've got to bring you guys here, you know, because in the book, there's an amazing chapter, the chapter of Dad's passing. And I need you guys to feel exactly the ambience and the surroundings of that day, because that was one of the most emotional days of my life. You know, as I sit here, stand here, and I'm walking towards the stone, there's an element of disbelief. Disbelief. That all that story that I told you about Bermondsey, Cyprus, Deptford, and all the trials and tribulations he done in the book that I will show you. All the sacrifices and the gambles. All them stories that he told me. The roads he drove by. The roads he drove down. The journey of his life. And he ended up here. My dad. Ramadan Yusuf Lala. Rami for short, as you'll all know him in the book. When I actually see it, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. You know, when we sit here and our time's flown. Our time's flown. And that's one thing that I said in the book. I want you to bring it closer over here, all right? As we look at this, there's one part I notice in the book. I note it in the book. And it's the most important part. Don't worry about the dates or what it says. It's them three little nudges. See them three little nudges? Them three little nudges. First one, you came in, you lived your life, and you died. Them three nudges is his whole story of his life. The rest of it don't mean nothing. And that's the story that we try to bring alive in our book. You know, since we started the book, I've never really thought about, I've thought about Dad every day, but I think about him all the time, every day. And you know, I've got other family members here. I've got other family members. I've got aunties. I've got cousins. I'm not going to mention who they are because it's not down to me to say that. It's not. But I'm here for my dad. You know, when we spoke in the podcast and we spoke about no religion and your spiritual being. Are you spiritual? Are you religious? You do all that believing in God for this moment. You know, for this moment. Is it really going to happen? Are you going to pass over? Are you going to go to the heaven? You know? Or is it you just lay there? The thought of it. But being spiritual, it gets you through your life while you're alive. And the religion, the questions you always try to ask yourself about death. You know, this was his moment. Are we ever going to know? We're not going to know. We're not going to know none of that. It's like when you grieve, innit? But I'll take you back. I can remember when we carried him. We carried him all the way from where we was on the road there, and his place was packed. There must have been, I don't know, it seemed like bloody thousands of people. It couldn't have been, but it seemed so many. The whole place was heaving with people. And you got to remember, it was the first, well, it wasn't our first death, but it's the first death of our first cousins that we knew, of an uncle or an auntie. And Nan and our granddad passed away. They're in this cemetery. And none of us really knew what we were doing. None of us knew our role. None of us really knew how it was all going to pan out. But we all knew we had to carry him over. And when I saw that hole, and I knew he was going to go in it, it was devastating. You know, just, I can remember my uncles and my aunties, my cousins, all in disbelief. The reality of never ever seeing him again. You know, him being ill. You know, how long was he going to be like that for? How long? How long was he going to carry on? Was there part of us that was thinking we need him to be saved? Alive, or even on the other side? Because he wasn't well. I remember him saying to me, I will beat this disease. I will beat it, even if it kills me. And it killed him, didn't it? Sad, very sad. You know, death is a funny one, isn't it? You know, it's something that we all have in the back of our mind. We hide it. No, do we? There's a lot of people out there don't even think it's going to happen. They think they're going to be here forever. Think to yourself, you know, if someone said to you, you don't have long, what would you do different? What changes would you make? Death itself, even though it's explained in the holy books, you're sentenced to death the moment you're born. The realisation of him passing brought it back for me. It made me realise that time is so important. It's so important. That's why I don't waste no time. Every single living minute I have, I always try to make sure I'm trying to do something. I don't want to have no regrets. One beautiful thing about my dad, I must admit, when he was ill, and I think he'd come to terms of actually realising that there was nothing else they could do. He said to me, I've had a good life, man. I've had a good life. And he had an amazing character, and his character itself was a proven fact he had a good life. That's why I say money, cars, big flashy boats, Gucci garms, showing off, Rolex watches, wealth, money. It helps, but it's not the all. The reality of it is just to try and make sure you create happiness in your life. Because death is always around the corner. And it's going to be tomorrow, but which tomorrow it is, I don't know. None of us know. You know, when you say we pass, what's the best way of passing? Knowing you're going to die, or not knowing you're going to die? Out of the blue, you don't say your goodbyes? Or is it, you know you're going to pass, and you say your byes? and never really heard it from his mouth. Goodbye. Never really heard it. You know, he had leukemia, and him coming to the hospital and they diagnosed him with stage 4 leukemia, cancer. We knew it was the end. We knew. We tried so much. The whole family tried. And we knew deep down it was going to come. We all knew. We had hope. We had hope. And knowing him, who he was and what he was about, if anyone was going to come through it, it was going to be him. But for like millions of people out there that have had loved ones that have passed, look at it around. Just look around. It's full. The whole place is full. And you say to yourself that, how did they die? Was it old age? Was it an illness? Was it a car accident? Was it a stabbing? Was it just a freak little accident? Now everyone has their own reasons of dying, whatever it may be. But my dad's was a terminal illness. That's why you guys out there will relate to people that have passed. You know, it's heartbreaking me sitting here and I can see people that are young, old, men, women. It's heartbreaking. It's a fact of life. And we've just got to make it like the most we can. The grieving itself. I sometimes still think to myself, I still grieve. But I've learned in my head to block it out. I've learned to, I'll be honest with you, and this is the gospel truth. In my head, I feel like he's still alive, and that's why I don't come back here. Because every time I come back here, it's a realization that he's fucking 6 foot down. The realization of it. If I don't come here, psychologically, he's at home. He's with me mum. He's drinking a bit of whiskey. He's having a barbecue. He's fucking about. And I come here and it's the realization of, there he's put his head. That day I remember the funeral. The heavens opened. It rained so hard, so hard, so hard. And you wanted it to be painful. You wanted it to hurt you, to give you a sense of feeling, a real feeling. Because you was just numb that day, absolutely numb. You know, I'll bring you back here so you can see exactly how, when you read in the book, when I break down into detail, the moment I pull into the cemetery, how I'm in the front of the hearse and I got my hand on his coffin and I spoke to him the whole way through, and we ended up bringing him here and finding him a plot, his final resting place. I say to myself sometimes as well that, did my dad ever think he was going to end up in Grove Park Cemetery, Marvel's Lane Cemetery? Did he ever think that? You know, there's some places you drive past every single day and you don't realise there's a part of that day that you end up becoming totally connected with. This is his. You know, being here, like, it's been a while since I've been here. And I get emotional. You know, because like I said, it's the realization, the reality of where he is. But as much as it's hard coming, it's hard leaving him. And that's what's really sad. Because I don't want to leave him. I want to dig him up. I want him to tell me it was a lie. You know, when you leave here and, you know, when I'm at work, in the back of my mind, when it rains, I feel like, is it getting wet? When it snows, is it cold? You know, when it's night time, is he alone? All these thoughts go through my head, and that's why when I come here for a week after, I'm traumatized. The reality of it kicks in for me, you know? And it must do for everyone else. And there's part of me that wants to block that out. But there's part of me that don't want to block that out, because then it's like I'm forgetting him. It's a hard one. It's a very hard one. Look, I'm walking away from him now. Is he calling me? Ma'am, ma'am. I don't know. I can't fucking hear him. I can't hear him. And me walking away, I always have I relive a moment of walking away that day when we buried him. And there was just a huge void. All the up and down with the hospital, all his life and everything, it's come to an end. He was just left there. Reality of it, another number, another gravestone. Me, you know, when I left there, I ended up going into a deep despair. And it was the grieving process. We all grieve differently. If I look here now, all these people that have passed, their loved ones have grieved differently. It made me stronger, made me reevaluate, made me appreciate you guys, my children, Ria, Layla, Kyra, your mum, my sister, my brother, my nephews. Makes you realise that tomorrow it could be your day. What have you left behind? What have you done? What have you achieved? I never thought that at that time though. At that time, I was calling for him every single day. I was thinking about what my mum was feeling. Oh, the stories, the feeling, the heartache, the disbelief that I thought this would never happen to us. The reality of realising that me being that person that thought you never die smashed me straight in the face with one of my closest. And he was young, that's what hurt. And grieving itself, how do you grieve? Like I said in our religious podcast, I never went to school. No one taught me about these things. You don't understand it. People dread this moment. People don't get it. That's why it's a beautiful thing to teach your children about this process and make it a magical process. And part of that magical process is me being on this film for my future generation to see it, because in reality, you've never died. You live forever. How can I explain what grieving is? I'll explain it in one way, because I take it out of the book. It's a bit like laying bricks. Every brick has an emotion, has a feeling, has a memory. And you've got to relive that brick day after day after day after day. You've got to relive it, and you lay it. And another brick with another thought, with another feeling, with another emotion, with another story. And you lay them and you lay them and you lay them. How long these takes? Days, weeks, months, years. And what you do is you build that wall right up. You're grieving. You know, you go to bed at night, you think about him, you wake up, you think about him, whatever you do, you think about him. If you could turn back time, if you could change the story, if you could do what you needed to do, your regrets. When he called me, I wish I picked the fucking phone up. When he asked me to come down, I wish I went. And I relive it, regrets. and I build that wall up. It's the only way I can explain what grieving is, and I build it up, build it up, build it up, build it up. And on the other side is my grieving, because I can see it, I can feel it. And on this side is my existence, my children, my everyday being. And I build them walls up, and it takes months. Every single brick has a story and an emotion, and I build it up. And it's the only way I can explain what grieving is. And I build it up so I can't see on the other side. But once in a while, I'll tiptoe and I'll look. Once in a while, I'll be thrown on the other side. I'll be forced. Sometimes I'm gonna wanna do it because I'm not feeling good. Sometimes it just happens. And I just keep my grieving process on the other side of the wall, because it's the only way I can cope. It's the only way I can stay sane. It's the only way I can explain a grieving process. My grieving process is laying bricks, brick by brick by brick, and every brick has a story. It has a story. So as I leave and I explain to you my grieving process, you know, it was the grieving process that put me into the deepest, darkest turmoil. The thought of, am I ever gonna get out of this? Am I ever gonna be released from this realization of death, my own existence? You know, the thought of dad going, the thought of mum going, just kept pounding me. You know, I'd wake up with the trauma, I'd go to bed with the trauma, I'd dream about him. You know, I've left him. But it was that brought me to loggerheads with myself, to make sure that it wasn't just going to be in my head, but I was going to pull it into paper. I was going to make it real. I was going to make sure that his existence will live on. It will live on. You know, his life is not going to be forgotten. I'm going to make sure of that. And that's why when we started writing, the only way we knew was boom. Because new is was. And Dad was an amazing guy. You know, he had his ups and his downs. Like I talk about the podcast, addiction. I talk about money. I talk about all this other array of stuff on the podcast. It all leads down to this man, Rami, Ramadan, my dad. But it's not just my dad, you know. He's an uncle, he's a brother, he was a son, you know, he was. And that's why the book is so important. You know, I never knew at that time when I left the graveyard, the grieving process was going to create that. I never knew that. I do not want him just to be another headstone. You know, the journey that we've gone to go on, you know, is an amazing one, and we need you guys to join us on this journey. You know, death itself, you know, that day when I think about going back then, I wish I celebrated him more. You know, I wish that it was a celebration more of his life and not really but you can't help it, can you? You can't help it. You know, everyone in that situation doesn't know how to handle it. They don't know what it's really about. You know, it's important. So me bringing you back here today, you know, is a symbolisation and a tribute to a life of my dad. You know, The Only Way We Knew, the book, is an amazing book. You know, it's a realization of our existence, our journeys, our trials and our tribulations. So when I sit here and I try to explain to you guys, you know, do I have any regrets? You know, do I have any moments where I wish I picked up that telephone? Of course I do. But you guys, you know, if you've got that moment, you can. You know, you haven't spoke to your mum in a while, pick up that phone and ring them. Ring your dad. Tell them you love them. You have any beef with anyone, just ring them up. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. None of it is worth it. Because, you know, life is just too short. And I feel that as humans, you know, we have to unite. It makes us stronger. It makes us who we really are. And you know, when I showed you that bit on the gravestone where it had them 3 notches, that little line in between the 2 dates, it's up to you, me, my children, my loved ones, family, to make that the best line ever. The best line ever. Yeah. It's the only way we knew. It is the only way we knew.